Welcome to the 8th grade Math Homework Helper Series. Tonight's homework is MS4, or multi-step equations with variables on both sides. We'll start by taking a look at number 2. Number 2 is 5a minus 40 equals 3a. So we copy down the equation. If we take a look, we want to try and isolate the variables on one side of this equation and the numbers without variables on the other. And so the easiest way to do that is to take 5 and to move it over onto this side. So we remove 5a by subtracting 5a. And as always, whatever we do on one side of the equation, we have to do on the other. So we subtract negative 5 from 3, and we get negative 2a. And we bring down negative 40, and that equals. And that brings us to step 2. So we have negative 40 equals negative 2a. Still trying to isolate the variable, so we have to divide by negative 2, which cancels that out. And again, what we did on one side we have to do on the other, so we have to divide by negative 2. And that's going to bring us to the next step. The negatives cancel out. We're basically cutting 40 in half when we divide by 2, which gives us 20, and our a is brought down. Let's now take a look at number 6. We have 1.1 m equals 0.5 m minus 40. Write the problem. Again, we want to isolate variables on one side, numbers on the other. So it would be easiest to take this 0.5 and to bring it over to this side. And to do that, I have to subtract 0.5 m, which eliminates it completely from this side. And I also have to do that on this side. And if I subtract 0.5 from 1.1, I get 0.6. I bring down the equal sign and the negative 40, and that brings me to step 2. So I want to eliminate 0.6 from the m, and I do that by dividing. And again, whatever I do on one side, I need to do on the other. So just to review what the division looks like for these, remember it's I over O, so inside over outside. So my 0.6 goes to the outside, and my 40 goes to the inside. Now, remember, you cannot divide with a decimal out here, so we have to move it one time, which moves this from 0.6 to just being 6. And since I moved it in the divisor, I have to move it in the dividend, which makes it out here. So now I'll be dividing 400 by 6. And it will go in 66 times with a remainder of 4, and that 4 goes over the original 6 that I started with. But you may recognize that 4/6 is not in lowest terms, and it can be divided by 2. So we have negative 66 and 2/3. And that brings us to the last problem, number 10. We have 18 minus 4n equals 6 minus 16n. So that we want to isolate variables on one side, numbers on the other. So we'll start by taking 16n away from here, and we do that by adding. And if we did it to this side, we're going to have to do it to this side. So we have 16n, and that's going to give us a positive 12n. The equal 6 needs to be brought down, as does the 18. And so we have 18 plus 12n equals 6, which brings us to our next problem. And what we want to do here is we want to get rid of the 18 by subtracting. And if we did it on one side, we have to do it to the other. And that's going to get us negative 12. The rest of my problem comes down. So we're left with 12n equals negative 12. And that's going to be Step 3. Remember, our goal is always to isolate the variables, so we want to get rid of that 12, and we do that by dividing. And if we did it to this side of the equal sign, we certainly will do it to this side. Bring down the n, and of course 12 divided by 12 is going to be 1, and it's negative because one of the 12s was negative. Use these problems to help you solve the additional problems that are on your homework tonight. Remember, the key to being successful in math is not only working hard, but working smart.